Most people believe that the eyes are the windows to the soul, but neuroscience suggests something far more clinical and revealing. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine that has been evolved over millions of years to detect deception, yet you likely spend your life being misled by the social masks of those around you. We are taught to listen to words, while the prefrontal cortex, the seat of our executive function, is actually designed to decode the subtle biological dissonance between a person's speech and their physiological reality. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this long before the advent of modern brain imaging. He recognized that human behavior is not a series of random choices, but a manifestation of deep-seated biological drives. To truly read someone, you must stop looking at who they pretend to be and start analyzing the raw, unedited signals of their will to power. The first step in the Nietzschean protocol is understanding the neurological tension between the amygdala and the neocortex. When someone speaks, they are using the most recently evolved part of the human brain to craft a narrative that serves their social standing. However, the limbic system, which governs our primal emotions, cannot be fully silenced. This creates what psychologists call leakage. To read anyone instantly, you must train your perception to ignore the linguistic delivery and focus on the micro shifts in muscle tension and respiratory rate. Nietzsche argued that every philosophy is a form of involuntary biography. In a modern psychological context, this means that when a person judges another, they are not describing an external reality. They are revealing the internal architecture of their own insecurities and neural pathways. One of the most profound psychological truths Nietzsche uncovered involves the concept of ressentiment. In your daily interactions, you will encounter individuals who seem, perpetually focused on the unfairness of the world. From a neuronarrative perspective, this is a feedback loop, where the brain attempts to protect the ego from the pain of perceived inadequacy. When you hear someone constantly criticizing the success of others, they are providing you with a complete map of their own failures and suppressed desires. You are not witnessing a moral critique, you are witnessing a defensive biological mechanism. By identifying this pattern, you can instantly gauge a person's level of self-actualization. A person who is truly at peace with their own will to power has no biological need to diminish the status of others. We often assume that information is gathered through what is present, but Nietzschean analysis requires you to look for the void. The brain often uses a cognitive process known as selective attention to bypass truths that are just too painful to integrate into the self-image. If you want to understand a person's true character, observe what they refuse to discuss and the topics they pivot away from with uncharacteristic speed. This avoidance reflex is a clear indicator of a psychological wound or, maybe a hidden motive. When the prefrontal cortex detects a threat to the internal narrative, it triggers a subtle fight or flight response. This might manifest as a slight increase in speech tempo or a sudden shift in physical orientation. These are the moments where the mask slips and, honestly, the underlying biological truth is exposed. Nietzsche was deeply skeptical of public displays of morality, often seeing them as a sophisticated cloak for the instinct of cruelty, or maybe just a desire for control. Modern social psychology, interestingly enough, backs this up through the study of moral grandstanding. When you observe someone who is, a bit too eager to display their goodness or purity, your brain should flag this as a compensatory mechanism. Often, the more a person emphasizes a specific virtue, the more they are struggling with the opposite impulse in their subconscious. This is actually a form of reaction formation. To apply this, look for the overcorrection. The person who talks most about honesty is often the one most terrified of their own capacity for deception. By recognizing this, you gain a massive advantage in negotiations and personal relationships, as you are seeing the internal struggle rather than the polished exterior. To implement this as a daily cognitive habit, you must adopt a specific observational dosage. For the first 60 seconds of any new interaction, practice de-lexicalization. This is the process of intentionally ignoring the meaning of the words being spoken, while focusing entirely on the tonality, the cadence, and the physiological cost of the speech. Observe if the person's gestures precede their words or follow them. Authentic emotional expression is almost always spontaneous and, slightly precedes the verbalization. This 60-second calibration window allows you to establish a baseline of a person's neural honesty before you engage in the complexities of the conversation. Nietzsche famously believed that suffering was the ultimate revealing fire. While you cannot always see people in moments of crisis, you can observe their micro-sufferings, how a person handles a minor inconvenience, a delayed flight, a spilled drink, or even a slight social snub, reveals the structural integrity of their psyche. When the brain is under even mild stress, the higher-order cognitive functions that maintain the social mask begin to fatigue. In these moments, the underlying temperament, whether it be one of resilience or one of fragile entitlement, becomes visible. At our core, our nervous systems are still tuned to the frequencies of survival. Nietzsche's observations on the beast of prey and the herd can be translated into the modern understanding of dominance hierarchies and the serotonin system. They do not feel the need to fill the silence or over-explain their actions. Conversely, those who feel biologically subservient will exhibit high-frequency, low-amplitude movements, fidgeting, darting eyes, and a constant need for verbal validation. By identifying these neurological markers of status, you can tailor your communication to either lead or collaborate effectively. So, the ultimate goal of learning to read others via the Nietzschean protocol is not just, about external manipulation, but really about internal calibration. When you become an expert at detecting the masks in others, you inevitably begin to see your own. And honestly, this is where the true growth occurs. You start to recognize when your own amygdala is driving your judgments, and when your neocortex is spinning a web of justifications for your weaknesses. This level of psychological transparency allows you to move through the world with a, cleaner lens. You no longer react to the shadows people throw on the wall, instead you react to the light that creates them. This is the transition from being a subject of human nature to, really, becoming a master of it. As you integrate these truths, you'll find that the world actually becomes quieter. The noise of social chatter is replaced by the clear, rhythmic signal of biological intent. You're no longer guessing what people think, you are instead observing what they are. Mastery over human psychology is, honestly, the highest form of the will to power, as it grants you the ability to see the truth in a world that is, designed to hide it. Reading people is not a parlor trick. It is a fundamental survival skill for the self-actualized individual. By combining Nietzsche's philosophical depth with the precision of modern neuroscience, you have been given the keys to the human laboratory. But remember, a map is only useful if you have the courage to follow where it leads. Start applying the 60-second De-lexicalization Protocol today. Watch for the micro-sufferings and the leaks in the social mask. If you found this deep dive into the biological reality of human behavior valuable, go ahead and subscribe to this channel, and hit the notification bell. We are dedicated to providing the science-backed blueprints you need to architect a more powerful version of yourself. Share this brain map with one person you know who is tired of being misled by the surface level. It's time we all start looking beneath the mask.